I've always loved art. I've always had an appreciation. I always wished I could do stuff. Didn't know I could carve a face until I got into it. In 2007, I went and visited a friend in Newport, Tennessee. And he goes, come out in the shop. I want to show you a hobby I got into. And he had a pretty rough looking face. And he was carving in the side of an old cedar fence post. And he gave me a chisel and he said, run that up that cedar. And the moment I did that, something in me clicked. And I just said, man, I've got to do this. And on the way home, I made the people I was riding with stop at a bookstore. I bought a woodcarving book and a woodcarving magazine, and I began to whittle just with a knife. And then my friend Marty down in Tennessee was taking lessons off a real master carver down there, and so he was sharing with me what he was learning. And so I drove down to Tennessee maybe several months later, and that's when I did my first rough face. Then I got some YouTube videos. I actually purchased DVDs, just started studying, learning, growing in that, and took some real professional lessons. I was stumped and almost quit because there is a level of skill, especially when I started getting into the faces, because all my faces at the beginning, they kind of look like aliens or Easter Island faces. And I wanted to carve realism. I didn't want to carve caricatures unless they were more of a fantasy type. And so a lot of wood went into the fireplace. I just kept at it, kept digging in. I'm not a quitter. It does take patience. I'm not a patient man. I'm kind of a type A leader. I have a lot of energy. It really helped me find some peace, and that kept me coming back to the shop and keep carving. So many things can happen when you begin to do a carving because you can only carve what the wood gives you. And so you may predict like the grain is doing this, and then you get inside and maybe you find a knot. I was carving a green man, and while I was carving, a worm came out of its head. And there's a perfect little round circle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it ruined my carving. But then you just gotta, I guess the artist in me just appreciates, you gotta work with what you have. And so it's very rare that I will get into a piece and say, I don't like what the wood's doing, and I'll scrap it. Unless you get in there and there's just rot. You can't carve rot. Or some of the biggest mistakes I've made with wood, the grain, if it runs away and I carve it wrong and I do a big chip out, some of those biggest mistakes actually take you deeper into the wood, which adds more depth and shadowing, which makes it adds more realism. But most carvings, once you get into it, if there's something in the wood, you take what nature gave you. You take what the wood gives you. And so I've always thought, whenever I thought a carving was ruined, it actually became one of my better carvings. There's always another level that you go to when you're carving, and I'm not there yet. I'm still learning. But the expressions, the life in the face, so you add character or personality. That's what I'm going to. That's my next goal. And then I did my first portrait of my father. I wanted to honor him, even though he may not, I showed him the carving once and he's like, oh, I can't believe that. But I also, in my heart, wanted to know I'm honoring him, and so his legacy will continue in that piece of art. The reason I love doing green men is because they are very freestyle, meaning you are not copying necessarily a green man, even though I have one I copied from Norwich in Europe. And kind of the tradition or the legend of green men is in some churches in Europe before the 1600s, at some place in the cathedral would be a green man, which is a man either in ceramic or mortar or wood with leaves or vines coming out of their face. Nobody has really said this is the reason those were in churches. It's all a lot of speculation. They take a little time, depending on how detailed you get with the vines and the leaves and those kinds of things. Also, I really love carving Native Americans, and I like Native American history, very sad history. Our country was terrible. And so some of the strength and the honor that is in some of those older pictures, I enjoy carving that. I really would like to go beyond faces because it's a skill set I don't have yet. That's what master carvers are. They can do a lot of different styles of carving, where I've kind of focused in on the faces, so I'm trying to focus in on other styles, other figurines or nature. I'm doing a dragon. Very difficult for me because the proportions and everything I've learned do not apply. And so it's a whole nother step of learning, which is part of the fun of carving and wood carving. So my greatest, I guess, failure or challenges carving is not quitting quite yet. To add just a little more detail, because the detail is what makes a standard carving a fantastic carving. The more detail, the more realism, the more artistic it looks. So I've learned when I think I'm done to be like, set that aside, come back out tomorrow night or when I get another evening and look at it again and realize I wasn't quite done. And the times I've done that, I've always been very, very happy with the outcome. I love to carve because when I come out in the shop and like I say, I just kind of leave everything behind, and you kind of enter this peaceful state of just enjoying working with your hands, enjoying working with the raw materials that the Lord created, just wood, and you really do experience just a peaceful joy in your heart, whether I'm listening to a book or some good music, or a lot of times just carving in silence. You get into a piece and then the time can just fly. That's always a great time. You see it coming together, that just adds to all of those feelings and emotions, and you just keep doing it. I mean, you created it. There's nothing like it in the world. It's the only thing like that, the only piece like that in the whole universe. There's a lot of emotion in art, even though we may not want to see it. It's just not this static, analytical thing. It is, you emotionally connect with pieces. To give a piece away and write a note with it on why you were inspired to carve that for them, that's the best. And see somebody tear up or somebody smile or somebody just really enjoy it. That's really, really important.